I started to research projects to see what would benefit my local neighbourhood. Looking around my own neighbourhood, I recognised the need to know our neighbours more. Mr. Speaker, we tend too much in our lives to only know of our neighbours by a simple wave bringing the wheelie bins at night or checking the mail in the afternoon. The sad fact is that when I was researching various projects to build neighbourhood community spirit, I began to see a sad fact recurring time and time again. I kept finding newspaper articles and media reports of fellow Australians passing away in their homes and their deaths going unnoticed for quite some time. In one article, a man was found dead after he died more than 8 months in his house, and no one noticed. In another instance, it was 6 months before another man was found dead in his public housing unit. Again, no one noticed. 4 days later, police discovered the remains of an elderly woman in her home in the New South Wales Central Coast. Postal workers called the police only because she had not collected her mail for 6 months. No one noticed. There were many other examples, both in this state and in other parts of the country. This made me stop and think. We pride ourselves on progress in technology, support for community centres, and wonderful advances in healthcare. But with all of this, and all of our national affluence, why in 2009 are these fellow Australians spending their last days alone, and even then are still not noticed? These types of reports and articles maybe not limit my community project to my street, but maybe extend it to my neighbourhood. I found that the community responded eagerly, and approximately 150 people turned up to Know Your Neighbour Day. Part of the reason for this underlying problem, I think, is that in so many cases today, people are so busy and simply haven't the time to get to know their neighbours. And this is particularly so with the increase of high-density apartment block housing. I found these cases so very sad, and they gave me the sobering thought that, just possibly, if the neighbours of these people had taken the trouble just to say hello on a regular basis or sit down with them and have a coffee, these sad situations could have been avoided. It doesn't take much. One major contributor to this problem is that people increasingly feel that they should go about their daily lives minding their own business. I'll repeat that phrase, Mr. Speaker, minding their own business. Too often, that means looking the other way or crossing to the other side of the road. Too often, that means seeing a crime being committed and not reporting it. Too often, that means not supporting the police when they are trying to do their job. There's been a great deal of public debate about citizenship and how people should know their rights. We've even seen public calls for some sort of Bill of Rights. Well, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, it is time that we balance the ledger and emphasise the importance of people knowing their responsibilities. When I was at school, if I came home and told my parents that I'd got into trouble with a teacher, my parents would invariably side with the teacher. Now, that wasn't because I was a particularly bad student. It was because they realised that it was vital that parents give the level of support to teachers for a school to properly function. Increasingly, my friends in the teaching profession tell me that not only do children, even primary school children, stubbornly assert in some classroom situations that they have rights, but there are increasingly cases where parents will instantly side with their children and do nothing to support the school or the principal. That does nothing, Mr. Speaker, to engender a sense of responsibility in our next generation, and it does nothing to actually educate the child concerned. Mr. Speaker, there is a major danger in the re-election of a government which has now been in office for more than 10 years. Because of the conventions applying to inaugural speeches, I will not dwell on this, but I will have something to say about the growth in bureaucracy and red tape on another occasion, and how significant factor that was in the slowness of the response to the devastating oil spill on the Sunshine Coast. I will also have more to say about another symptom of a government which has been in office for a long time, and that is the increased propensity for local communities not to be consulted about major infrastructure developments which affect them, or at least to get only lip service consultation. The Traviston Dam, fast-paced greenfield site developments, the taking of the Sunshine Coast water and forced council amalgamations are but to name a few. Now is not the time to delve into these issues, but they are just some of the important matters that I look forward to raising in this House and on which I intend to hold the government to account. The member for Buderim, in his maiden speech in 2006, referred to the health system as being a basket case. Unfortunately, members, not much has changed since 2006. We have serious health shortfalls on the Sunshine Coast. I am, however, looking forward to the government building the Sunshine Coast University Hospital as promised by 2014, a greatly needed piece of infrastructure and asset for the Sunshine Coast. Our Westminster system works well under the authority of a constitutional monarchy, with its established web of reserve powers and checks and balances. But a Westminster system also needs an opposition which probes and scrutinises relentlessly if necessary. And under the new leader of the Liberal National Party, with his newly invigorated team, I look forward to contributing wholeheartedly to that vital task. The journey to this Parliament, members, is not an easy one, and as members would understand, a journey that cannot be taken without assistance and support. Many people assisted me in my successful campaign. I would like to acknowledge those who have made a profound contribution to my campaign. En bloc, I would like to thank my entire campaign team and the campaign helpers, for I know that without you, their tireless efforts over the last 6 months of our local campaign, I would not be standing in this House as member for Kawana. And to my state colleagues on the Sunshine Coast, thank you. I must today, however, pay particular tribute to my campaign director, Mrs. Carol Humphreys, and my assistant campaign director, Mrs. Elizabeth Worthington. Carol and Elizabeth ran a campaign with the utmost professionalism and style, and at times endeavouring to put up with my Generation Y campaign thoughts and enthusiasm. I have thanked my wife, Sally, earlier in this inaugural speech, and I must now express from the bottom of my heart my thanks to my parents, Peter and Christine Bleijie. I recall during the election campaign a regular assertion being made that by choosing the legal profession as a career, as I had, and being a practising lawyer, I must have been born with a silver spoon in my mouth. This assertion is wrong, and those close to me know that I have had a very modest upbringing. I was born in Griffith, New South Wales. My father was a fuel tank driver, and my mother had one of the most important jobs and difficult jobs in the whole world, and that was being a full-time mum. My family and extended family are very close. So when my uncle Lindsay Cooper met with the late Ken Maynard, the artist of one of Australia's most famous landmarks, the Ettamogah pub, he told Ken that he had a vision and determination to transform that cartoon into a reality and build Australia's most famous pub. We followed Uncle Coop to Albury, where he built, owned and operated the first Ettamogah pub. Following the success of the Ettamogah pub in Albury, my family moved to Queensland in 1989, where again Uncle Coop continued the dream and completed the Ettamogah pub on the Sunshine Coast. Shortly after that, my parents opened a local camping store in Caloundra, where I often helped on the weekends when I was not serving customers at KFC. My parents, although enjoying politics, were never involved in any party politics, and when my interest in politics arose, they were not members of any political party. They had a set of ideas, beliefs and values that they wanted to impart on me, my brother Lyndon, who serves in the Australian Army, and my sister Jessica, who is working abroad in business marketing. I want to thank my mother and father for the support and encouragement they have given me over 27 years. They have helped shape the person that I am today, the values that I hold dear, and the values that I now teach my daughters. They taught me to believe in myself, to strive for excellence, to work hard, to assist the needy and develop my own set of values, but never shying away from the good old-fashioned values, manners, responsibilities and obligations. These were imparted on me by my parents, my Nana Joan and my great-grandparents, Jacobus and Myra. Mr. Speaker, I might add that I believe that we have a lot to learn from our grandparents' generation in terms of self-respect and owning up to our responsibilities and obligations as a society, and the shift away from the blame game that we often play these days. This Saturday, the 25th of April, is of course Anzac Day. To the diggers of the past and the present, I would like to pay tribute to the dedication you continually show when serving this country and the manner in which you conduct yourselves in battles abroad. As I stated earlier, Mr Speaker, I was a lawyer prior to entering Parliament. I would like to thank the partners of Sagen Legal, Mr Tony Soden and Mr Kyle Kimball, for the encouragement and personal support they afforded me when I decided to contest the seat of Kawana. They are articulate lawyers and have provided me many of the tools that I feel will hold me in good stead in this House. Mr Speaker, I draw much of my political inspiration from Sir Robert Gordon Menzies. What may be before us we do not know, nor how long the journey. But this we do know, that truth is our companion on this journey, that truth is with us in this battle, and that truth must win. Members may be aware that this quote was made by Sir Robert Menzies in his 1939 speech advising that Australia was now at war. However, in the context of our roles and responsibilities in this House, the words make sense, and I've never forgotten to apply them in every aspect of my life, and this will hold true to my role in this House. Mr Speaker, I commit now, whether my time in this Parliament is long or short, to work hard for my constituents, to hold the government to account, to contribute constructively to debate in this place and in the committees, and to hope that I am able to make a contribution to the betterment of our state and to the true welfare of the people of Queensland.